Hello, and welcome back to Your Life Your Way. If you've been with us, then you have heard the first part one of what we're talking about today. We have been, my guest and I, Debbie Compton, have been speaking about the challenges of being a caregiver. Debbie Compton is herself. She knows the road. She's walked the journey not once, not twice, but three times. She is a three-time caregiver for parents with different forms of dementia. She is a certified caregiving consultant and advocate and educator for the Alzheimer's Association. She's a speaker and a best-selling author of many books, 12 to be exact. She is also the founder of a wonderful organization called the Purple Vine. And their mission is to empower caregivers to help us all feel less stress, avoid the burnout that happens. And my favorite part is to help caregivers learn to laugh again because that can be hard some days. When you're a caregiver of a loved one, it comes with a bucket of emotions, fears, joys, guilt, and love. And Debbie is back with us today to talk about the when you're in the thick of it. So, Debbie, I am so glad to have you back with us. And this is a topic that we both want to get out more and have it be less in the background and really brought forth so more people understand and support those that are going through and prepare themselves if they see that part of their future. So, Debbie, welcome back to Your Life Your Way show.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I appreciate you inviting me on to be able to talk about this because it is very important. And most people wind up finding themselves in a caregiving position and not having any idea what they need to do or what to expect or what comes next. I know that because that was me too. So that's my whole mission now is just to help caregivers get a head start on this, know what's coming, have some tools in your toolbox already so that when you do become a caregiver, you know the transition is going to be so much easier and you'll have action steps and strategies that you can use instead of trying to frantically research or just standing there dumbfounded trying to figure out what you're supposed to do in this situation.
And you're right. And it can be so hard because, emotion takes over, fear takes over. This is your loved one, and it's downright scary. So, yes, everything that you're saying and preparing ahead of time is, I'm sure, tremendously helpful.
Mhm. Absolutely. And we're talking about the middle stages today because last time we talked about the early stages and the diagnosis. And so I would encourage folks that if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that because you may have missed some steps that you need to have in place by the time you reach the middle stages of the disease. So, and some of those things I'll just tell you, if you find yourself to the middle stages of a dementia diagnosis, which could be Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, vascular dementia, frontal temporal dementia, Lewy body dementia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. But if you find yourself in that and you're already at the middle stages where they're forgetting things and other symptoms that we'll talk about, you should already have a power of attorney in place. You should have a financial and a medical power of attorney that is notarized, and most banks will notarize it for you. So that should already be in place. You can do that yourself online, or you can talk to an elder law attorney if you feel like it's more complicated or it could be contested. Then I'd recommend going to them. But with this power of attorney, you should already have given it to the doctor, the banks, the credit card companies, utilities, and everyone else so that they know that it's okay to deal with you in regard to your loved one's financial status. And if they have a checking account, it's a great idea to be a co owner on that checking account. That way, you don't have the transitions of just being a signer on the account. If you're a co owner, then if something happens to your loved one, you still have control over what's going on with the money. So all of that should be done before we go into today.
So, you're saying that all would have been a part of the diagnosis. As soon as you have that inkling or that diagnosis, then you really need to get started on those legal portions.
Yes. Yes, because once the memory has been documented to be in decline, then they can't sign a power of attorney. They can, but it can easily be contested.
So
So you want to have it in place.
is that s- so let's clarify this a little bit for everyone and for those that are not in that stage yet and need to really be aware of when to make that call. So are you saying that if you're seeing something yourself with them, you do it then? It's so you want to do it before you have that official diagnosis then.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Because you're seeing the symptoms, you're seeing that they're not behaving the way that they used to, they're making poor decisions, a host of things, having memory problems. When you see that, you need to get the power of attorney in place. Now, it's not too late after the initial diagnosis to then put it in place. You still do it then. If you do it early on, then you can still be okay. But unfortunately, in some families, there's a struggle over who
Mhm.
should be the power of attorney, and there's infighting that goes on. And so, if someone winds up being the power of attorney and then you want to change it later in the disease, you can't because your loved one is no longer capable of making those decisions. So, that's
Wow.
why the sooner the better.
Okay.
Okay.
We're in the thick of it. What is happening? Where are we at
Okay.
this point?
Okay, well, I'll give you an example. I was outside with my mother-in-law and I was gardening. She was on the swing. She's looking around and she says, "Oh, look at those pretty suckers." And she's pointing up to the sky. We all know there's not suckers in the sky.
Mm.
She meant clouds. And so what happened in her brain is that the frontal temporal part said cloud. And so she sent the word cloud down, but before it got to her mouth, it got a little haywire. Things get a little messed up because the wiring in the brain gets a little frazzled when you're going through any form of dementia. So the word that came out was suckers. The important thing to know here is that in her mind, she said clouds. So if I start arguing with her and if I say, those aren't clouds, those are suckers, she thinks I'm crazy because she knows what she said, and so that's an important thing for caregivers. The biggest lesson is do not argue. Do not argue with your loved one. When you argue with them, first off, you're not going to win. You're not going to convince them that they didn't see, hear, or smell whatever it was that they saw, heard, or smelled. And even if it's in their mind, it's very real to them. So don't argue. You won't win. And then what you will do is you will cause them to tighten up. You will cause them to be stressed.
Yeah.
And when they're stressed, guess what happens to the disease?
It
It
progresses
gets
even
worse
faster. Yeah.
faster. Yes, you can actually make the disease get worse faster by arguing with them. So there's no point in it. Don't do it at all. What did I do in that situation? I looked up and said, "Oh, they are beautiful." Now, I didn't reaffirm suckers because who knows how she would have heard that and how it would have translated back through the brain. I just said, "Yes, they are beautiful." And so another situation like that was I was trying to get my mom inside, and it was cold outside this particular day. And so I have a little tree in the front yard, and she says, "Oh, look, there's monkeys in that tree." Okay, there are no monkeys in the tree. We all know that. But I look at the tree and I'm like, "Yeah, they are cute. Let's go inside." And mom is saying, "No, wait, I want to stay and watch the monkeys play in the tree." Well, again, it's freezing cold. And so instead, what I said was, "I bet those monkeys could use some jackets. Let's go inside and get them a coat." And she says, "Oh, that's a great idea." So we go inside. As soon as we're through the door, she's forgotten the monkeys, and it's fine. So that's what distraction has to be your tool. You got to have that one in your toolbox of just focusing them on something else. No matter what's going on, just bring up a different thing and change the subject. So, that helps so much because, particularly with Alzheimer's, there's a disconnect, as I mentioned, between the frontal lobe and the temporal lobe. You've got it's called plaques and tangles that are in the brain with Alzheimer's, and they can twist those little nerve receptors so that they don't fire correctly anymore. So that's something that's associated with Alzheimer's that's not in vascular dementia or Parkinson's. They have different issues.
How is there a different timing? There's 2 points as I want to reiterate something, and then I want to ask a question. So I'll
Okay.
ask the question first. Is there, because you have educated me, I had no idea there were 200 forms, more or less, of dementia, forms of dementia. How difficult is it for a doctor to be, I mean, an issue like Parkinson's is diagnosed first and dementia comes later with Parkinson's. But if someone is being diagnosed with Alzheimer's, is there a difference in how long it takes to get a plan in place and to get the diagnosis, get a plan in place, depending on what the actual diagnosis is, so that you're actually up and running and helping your loved one and yourself as quickly as possible?
Actually, Alzheimer's is much easier to diagnose because they can see it with a CT scan or there's another one also. My brain just went blank on that. Visual imaging that they do of the brain, though. They can see the plaques and tangles. So Alzheimer's is easier to diagnose. Parkinson's, there are no plaques and tangles. Typically, what gives away Parkinson's is what's called the Parkinson's shake,
Mhm.
where their hand will shake and move. But a lot of times, people with Parkinson's don't develop that shake until mid to late in the disease. And so it's very difficult for them to diagnose. It took over 3 years for them to diagnose dad. They
Oh,
weren't sure what was going on. They didn't have any idea. So, but the technology is improving all the time. But again, with a brain scan, they can see what's going on in the brain, and quite often, they can tell where the brain is shrinking, where it's dying, and then again with Alzheimer's, where the plaques and tangles are.
okay. Thank you.
So that can help with the diagnosis.
Excellent. I would like to also share again. I did share in the first part when you were talking about not arguing. And I was very honest and said that my mom has not been diagnosed with dementia, but because due to her age and her extreme hearing loss, it has affected her ability to process sometimes, and her memory is challenged sometimes. Um, but with arguing, I have found myself that I would say don't argue, or if you find yourself arguing, sometimes that, and I've done it, is you think if you're arguing and you're not rationalizing it, but it's almost like you're trying to keep them here
Yes.
and healthy and well.
Yes,
And
I
it
did
doesn't
that.
work that way. And it just
It does
causes more
not.
stress for both.
It right, it does not work, and that's very well said because I did the same thing. I felt like mom just wasn't trying. She's not trying to remember. She seemed very flippant about it. "Oh, well, I don't know. I don't remember." And I'm like, "Mom, try to remember." Well, that was very wrong of me because no amount of trying is going to replace a bridge, if you will, a bridge that's gone out
Mhm.
between the sections of the brain. It's not going to be rebuilt. No amount of trying is going to fix it. So we were very blessed that she was happy go lucky. She knew that she couldn't remember stuff, but it was no big deal. And I'd tell her all the time, everybody forgets stuff. Don't worry about it. It's fine. We all forget stuff. But that's what I would tell my mother-in-law and my dad, but both of them were very fixated on the fact that they knew they could not remember anymore, and it drove them crazy. They did not like it. They tried very hard to remember and to hang on, and what happened was they stressed themselves out, and they both went pretty quickly, 7.5 and 8 years
Mhm.
into the disease. It took both of them. My mom had vascular dementia for 21 years, so she was just a happy little camper.
So when the stress is happening and you're scared as a caregiver and you're watching your loved one change, what do you do?
Oh, it's so hard because you have the grief too. You are grieving the loss of a person who's still there. The body is still there, but you're grieving the loss of that relationship, those conversations you used to be able to have, the joy that you used to be able to enjoy doing things together, and you see it all leaving, and it is heartbreaking. And so, what I always encourage caregivers to do is you have to reframe your mindset. Don't focus on all that negativity. Don't focus on all the things they cannot do anymore, but let's focus on the things that they still can do. Let's be thankful for the things that they still can do. And that's a huge shift. And one good way to do that is every day to write down 3 things at the end of the day. 3 good things that happened that day. 3 things you're thankful for. 3 things that made you smile. Whatever it is, 3 positive things at the end of the day. What will happen over time is that your brain knows You're going to be required to come up with this information at the end of the day. So you start looking for it more throughout the day. And the more you look for joyful moments, the more you'll find them.
Mhm.
They're there. No matter what stage of the disease, there is joy to be found. And there are blessings to be found in every single phase of the diseases, no matter how bad it gets. But you have to be looking for it. You have to see it. The other thing is that we always think that, oh, I'll remember that. That was so good. I'll never forget that. You will. I did too. I knew I would. So that's why I created Right to Remember, which is that fat blue book right there. It is thick, but because it gives you plenty of space to write down those joyful things, write down those happy thoughts, doctor's notes, things you want to remember, things you want to tell the family, things you want to discuss with the doctor. Keep it all together, all in one
Okay.
place. And then you carry that one book with you and you can flip through the pages and go, okay, here's what I want to talk to you about, and you've got all your information together because that helps you as a caregiver. That is a great stress reliever for caregivers. Instead of worrying about, okay, I got to remember to do this, I got to remember to do that. Don't do that. You can use your phone if you want. The notes app on your phone is fantastic. I did that
True.
a lot too.
Mm.
Write your notes in your phone, and then you're taking the stress off your own brain. You're not having to remember those things. Don't put pressure on yourself. You got enough. Let's don't add to it. Okay, so that's a big point that we need to do to help ourselves. And then also, your loved one in the middle stages, your loved one most likely will start to tell you old stories, and they'll tell you the same old stories again and again and again. Here is an expert tip for caregivers: learn those stories, learn those people involved in those stories. Learn the location of the story, everything. Memorize or write it down what's going on in that story. Because here's what's going to happen by them repeating it, this is something that's stored in their long term memory. It's going to be one of the last things to go. So when they can't talk coherently about other things, they're going to give you pieces of that story,
Mhm.
and you're going to need to fill in the blanks. And
Right.
if you can fill in the blanks, you make them happy, they feel validated, they feel heard, they're together with you. They've made that connection. But if you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't know those people,
Mhm.
then it causes them to get frustrated and to get upset because you should know. Don't you know? Don't you remember? And that's what you're faced with. And you're sitting here going, and in my case, it's like, I didn't even know you back then. I have no way of knowing,
That's
you
great.
know.
I never would have thought of that.
Mhm. Memorize it, learn it. It's fantastic. I knew the whole stories of people that I've never met in my life, but I knew that story and I knew what happened, and it helped so much because a couple of stories that I did not know, oh my goodness, she was not happy that I did not know them.
Aw.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm
Sure.
sorry. So so we've learned, don't argue and learn the stories and be grateful. Remember three things to be thankful for. So what else can you do? At the middle stages, you need to really pay attention to their credit cards. Watch the debit cards or the credit cards or the checking account because predators are all over the place. And so you want to protect your loved one. It may include putting a block on the phone. There's services that you can get on the phone where you enter only certain numbers are allowed to call. And if it's not one of these matching numbers, the call doesn't go through. It's
Okay.
fantastic. Yeah, it protects your loved one because then you don't get those scammers calling. And it's a pretty new thing. It wasn't available when they were calling dad and tricking him all the time. So, but they'll have trouble if they a recipe. For example, my mother-in-law used to make these fantastic rolls. Every family gathering, she would make them. She knew how to make them from heart because she'd been making them for, I don't know, 50 years, 60 years. And all of a sudden, she couldn't remember how to make them, and she didn't know what to put in them. And it was very heartbreaking. It's a lesson that I wish I would have known sooner because if you have a loved one who does that, who makes a particular dish for whatever holiday or gathering or something, make sure you get a copy of that recipe. Ask them for a copy of the recipe because then when that day comes and they cannot remember how to do it, you can say, "Hey, can I help you? I've always wanted to help you do this." And then you can help them do it because you'll need to monitor ingredients get measured wrong. Again, there's a disconnect in the brain. So they start to measure a third of a cup and they actually put in a half a cup. And my mom put a whole block of cream cheese and then whipped it into her blueberry. It was a blueberry. Oh, I forgot the name of it. Not casserole, but and not a pie, but the other one. See, I'm doing it. I'm like, I don't know what it is. Oh my gosh. But the blueberry dish that she made, like a blueberry pie, and she just all of a sudden just put a block of cream cheese in it. It's like, what is happening here? Okay. And she made a green bean casserole and forgot to cook it. So, I mean, these things start happening. And so you want to be involved with them in the food preparation. And that's the best way to handle it is, do you mind if I help you out with this? Or can I help you or will you teach me is the best way. And then you just monitor it and make adjustments as you're going through. Um, so you also need to know the passwords on all their accounts.
Mhm.
Very important. You need to know how to get in to those accounts and check and see what's going on so that you know yourself.
I've had my mother write everything out on a sheet, and I have it in safely
Perfect.
with other documents. Yes.
That's perfect. That is very important. Well, and as they're in the middle stages too, depending on exactly which form of dementia they have, but a lot of the forms, their fingers become kind of like blocks. It's more difficult. They have a really hard time with buttons and they get frustrated because they can't get the button to work anymore. And so there are things that you can do there. With my dad, I bought him Western shirts with snaps. The snaps were very easy to do. Pulling them apart was easy to do. That worked for him. Um, my mom had pullover tops that she liked and things. My mother in law was always freezing all the time, and she liked to change clothes 3 or 4 times a day. She would change her clothes. And so at any given point, we're getting ready to go out to an appointment, and I look, and she's got, a black and white checked blouse and blue pants and a green blazer. And I'm just like, oh my. And so what I did with her, purple was her favorite color, mine too. So it worked out really well. So with it being purple as her favorite color, and with her always being cold, not being able to handle buttons anymore, mainly sweatpants. I got different colors of sweatpants and fleece pants that were different shades of purple. And then I bought printed tops, long sleeve tops and sweatshirts and sweaters, different shades of purple and different patterns and things with just the tops being patterned. That way she could change clothes all the time and she still matched. So it was fantastic for her. Fantastic. My mom didn't do that. Mom didn't wasn't into changing clothes and stuff. You get her dressed in the morning and she's pretty much gonna that's what she's gonna wear. So that's why it's so difficult because you can't say a person with this disease is going to do this.
It's all different. You
Maybe.
never know how they're going to
Yeah,
behave, react.
exactly. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. And that was the thing that really showed me in caring for the three of them is that there are no hard and fast rules. I just give suggestions of things to try because I can tell you, this worked for one of them. It may not have worked for another one. This worked for two of them. Hey, this is great. But you don't know. We were all different before they got the disease. They're all different after they got the disease.
And you're not just making it easier for them, but you're also making it easier for yourself to create a little space to breathe, to
Yes.
reduce your own personal stress because you laid out a wardrobe that, or put together a wardrobe that she could still feel she could do it.
Yes.
So it
She
still
had
makes her feel
control.
empowered, right? And
Mhm.
it also creates a space for you to just go, okay, she's got that. And I have my space and my breath right now. Because it can
Yes.
be very, even though my mom's been with me for going on 6 years. And actually, I think it's been, yeah, because we've been here 5, 6 years. And it changes, even though she's not diagnosed with dementia. She has her own level of um, cognition and
Impairment. Mhm.
memory because of the hearing loss and the age. But there's times and I see changes and I have to adapt, and
Mhm.
part of me wants to hang on to the way things were, and but it does once I learn to surrender and just respond to things rather than react to things. It makes it easier for both of us,
It
and it's
does.
very hard. Can you speak to I don't want to make you lose your place because I know you have some
That
points you want to
that's
make,
okay.
but it's so emotional and our emotions can be so cloudy and interfere with our own thinking process and to do these wonderful things. So someone is in the midst of that emotion and they're feeling exhausted themselves.
Mhm.
They're feeling overwhelmed that they're not just caring for their loved one, but they might be caring for a spouse, children. It could be a whole host of life that they're trying to tend to. How does one
Yeah.
navigate that when feeling that they're all alone and their life is passing them by? And that's an honest, I've heard women say that they just
It
feel
is.
that they're losing their life by being
Yeah.
in this situation.
Yeah, I can fully relate. I had no life. My life was taking care of them, and I made sure that they had their medications and all at the right time, and they were taking those, and that they ate healthy, and they did all the things, and then my doctor called me and said, "I haven't seen you in 2.5 years." And I was like, "Well, I'm okay." And he's like, "No, you need to come in." And I thought, "Well, how can I? I can't do that. I've got, you know." But then I had to really talk to myself and go, "There is help available." A lot of times we don't see it because we're stressed. And when you're stressed, it's harder to have clear thinking. And that's where it's really beneficial for someone to schedule a call with me, for example, because then I can provide those options and those things that they probably didn't even think of, but ways to get help and to get support. And so in that it comes around to stress reduction. You have to reduce your stress in order for you to be able to think more clearly. And there's a lot of stress reduction techniques that I teach people to use that you can do alone, all by yourself, while you're caring for a loved one. Doesn't matter. You can do it. It only takes a couple of minutes and it lowers your blood pressure, it lowers your stress, and it
Mhm.
helps you to think more clearly. And so for the person who says, "Well, I just don't have any help." Okay, let's look at that for a second because I think we all have people that come up to us sometimes and say, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And what do? We have our Wonder Woman cape on
We do.
and we say, "No, it's okay. I'm fine. I've got it." And guess what? That's usually a lie.
Yeah.
We're not fine. We don't have it all under control. So what can they do? What you can do is you get an index card. Get a little 3 by 5 index card and write on that the things that would help you if someone did. Doesn't even have to be related to caregiving. It can be mowing the yard, cooking supper once a week, whatever it is. Just write down everything that you can think of that would give you a little relief if someone did it for you. Then you put that index card in your purse. Next time you're out and someone says, "Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you," you whip out that little index card and hand it to them. And then you say, "Is there anything on this card that you might be willing to do?" See what I did? I didn't say, "Will you cook supper for me once a week on Friday night?" Maybe they don't
Mhm.
like to cook. I didn't say, "Will you come mow the yard every other week and take care of that?" No, let them have their choice. But 9 times out of 10, when you hand them that index card, they're going to look through it and they're going to come up with something that they can do to help you. And so, even if it's a small thing, there's a little bit of help you got right there just by showing that index card. And I mean, that's something that will help so much for caregivers. And then learning some stress reduction techniques too. And there's some on my website too. Visual imagery is one where you can go into the restroom if you need peace and quiet. Sit on the floor, sit on the toilet, doesn't matter. Close your eyes and go in your mind to your happy place. I go to the beach because I love the beach. And so you hear the sound of the waves and you feel the air, the warm air on your face and the sun all shining down on you. You hear the sounds in the distance. Go through all of your emotions to smell the salt air, everything. Take in all that peace and calm and relaxation. Because here's the cool thing about it, your brain thinks you're there. Your brain doesn't know that you
Or
didn't
difference.
leave.
Yeah.
There's scientific proof
Hmm.
that when you do this, your brain thinks you went to the ocean. So it will lower your stress levels. And then that's going to allow you to come up with more creative thinking, ways to solve the problems. It's going to lower your blood pressure. It's fantastic. It's great. And that's on my website, thepurplevine.com, and I think it's called visual imagery. So you can find a couple of those. They're free. Just go over there and listen into them. So yeah, we have to control our stress first, and we have to find ways to get the support that we need. Another thing that you can do as a caregiver is get a whiteboard. Just I got a 12 by 18 one whiteboard, and I hung it on the wall in the bedroom, and then I wrote the day, wrote it out, whatever it is, January 20 and the year. And so then I put on there any key things that were happening that day that weren't going to cause stress. If it stressed them out when we went to the doctor, I did not write the
But
doctor's appointment on there.
it's smart.
Just omit it. But if a granddaughter's coming to visit, write it on there. So you put just a couple of things because that gives them information. They may not remember. In the beginning, you can, and make sure you write large too. You want them to be able to really see it without straining. So in the beginning, you can put more information on it. You can put times and things, appointments and things like that.
Mhm.
As the disease progresses, you put less information on it. And then as it continues to progress, you may just put positive messages like, I love you, or it's going to be a sunshiny day today, whatever. Just something like that to bring them encouragement, to make them smile. But the important thing is don't move it around. Keep it in the same spot on the wall so that they know where to go. Make sure it's very large letters, and then make sure it's an encouraging message. Um,
That makes leads me to a question. When you said leave it there, they get familiar. Does that carry over to anything else in the home? For example, if
mhm,
you're one that loves to change the furniture around, what types of things can stir them and cause stress?
that can cause a lot of stress. And yes, especially in the middle stages. In the early to the middle stages, that can cause them stress. In the late stages, they don't remember anyway, so it's okay. But early to mid, you don't want to be moving furniture around. You don't want to
Mm,
be switching up a huge routine. Now, it's great if you're going to take them on a vacation or something, that's fantastic. I am a huge proponent of including them in all family outings, everything that you can. A few it won't work, but the majority it will. With a little bit of an adaptation, you can make it work because they get tired of staying in the same thing all the time too. And everybody likes to go out and have an ice cream,
mhm.
to go and do something like that is a good thing. But rearranging your furniture can cause chaos.
Okay, good to know. I wouldn't have
Yes.
thought of that except when you mentioned, because you did mention the bulletin board before, but it didn't even click into my mind then.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Well, in this middle stage too, they might say to you, I want to go home. And you try and tell them, well, this is your home. And they're like, no, I want to go home. I want to go to my home. Most of the time, what they're saying, it's not actually a location that they're wanting. It's that comfort, that peace that you find in home. Home is comforting. So maybe they need a hug. Maybe they need a nap. Maybe they just, generally, it's usually hugs. They need more hugs. They need positive affirmation, and then that can help. Now, sometimes in some instances, it can be that their clothes are itchy. Maybe there doesn't feel good on them and it's causing them distress. So again, they're seeking comfort is what they're
Oh,
wanting.
okay.
They may be overly tired, just worn out, and they just want to go excuse me. They just want to go lay down and take a nap is what they're wanting. But they're saying home because home is peace and comfort and rest. So we just have
Yeah.
to do a little investigating to figure out what it is that's going on.
I never would have thought of so many of these things.
I didn't either for the longest time. And a lot of that I picked up when I went to my training, got my certification training,
Mhm.
and then I was like, "Oh,
You
that
wish you'd
would have
known.
helped."
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I would have. That's why I'm so focused on let me tell you. So, Because can you imagine? Just imagine waking up every morning not knowing where you are
No,
or
I
who
can't.
people are. It's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible disease. So we've shared quite a few tips here, and so I hope that these tools and strategies will make the journey easier. I know they will if you try them, and don't just try once and then give up on it because it might work one day, might not work the next day, but it might work again the third day.
Good point.
You don't Things are not consistent, and the biggest challenge too, one of the biggest challenges for caregivers is that we try to rationalize what's going on with them, and it's not rational. The disease is not rational. It's not a matter, you can't reteach them, you can't train them to do things better. You're just going to cause stress between you and them too. So just love them where they are, give them the reassurance, give them those hugs every day, and then your life is going to be so much easier. And like I said, learn those stories because that will help a lot. Learn what's their favorite snack, what's their favorite food, what are their favorite movies, what kind of radio do they like to listen to. You need to know all these things because later when they cannot verbalize to you specifically what they want, you'll know, or you'll be able to say, do you want these crackers that you usually like, or do you want the potato chips? I know you like them too. And see, what I did is I told them, they didn't have to think of, do I like it or not? I
Mhm.
told them you like it. And then, or do you want a pudding cup? Or would you rather have applesauce this time? And I'm holding my hands up here because you're showing them.
Yeah.
Show them the pudding cup, show them the applesauce cup because that helps cue a different part of the brain and it makes the connection easier for them. Otherwise, you could say, "Do you want pudding or would you like applesauce?" And they're sitting there staring at you because they're trying to think, "What is pudding?" And you're going on, "Well, which do you want? Would you rather have pudding or would you rather have applesauce? I know you like applesauce, but do you like?" Oh my goodness, just stop.
But that's interesting. And when I'm working with clients, part of what we always work with are the five senses. And
Hmm.
you're working with the visual sense. Does it
Yes.
ever help to use this sense of touch? I know hearing
Yes.
can sometimes be detrimental depending what they're hearing, but how do you work in other senses to help them process things?
Well, to even hold it out to them, like for a sweater, there may be a big thick sweater or a thinner sweater, and so you hold it out and just let them touch it.
Mhm.
Would you like to wear this one? And or say, "Ooh, isn't this soft?" And let them feel of it. Do you want to wear this? It's nice and soft and warm. So you're telling and involving the other senses. That helps. You have a much greater chance of connectivity when you involve more senses.
Because the brain's going firing because now it's getting hearing, it's getting visual, it's getting touch, maybe even smell.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Exactly.
And I would like to add, and I could say this honest and openly because I can be a little stubborn. And I'm sure there are one or two of you out there that can also be a little stubborn. So I would say stop being stubborn
Yes.
and ask for help.
Yes.
Ask for help. Know what you need. Say what you need. Be vulnerable. Give
Yes.
someone the grace and the gift of helping. Please ask for help.
Exactly. And if I could tell you one story to go with that, my younger brother, is the one who really drove that home to me because he said, "What can I do to help you? You're taking care of mom and dad both. What can I do?" And I said, "Nothing. It's okay." And he said, "Deb, don't rob me of my blessing." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he said, "How do you feel when you help other people?" "Well, it makes you feel good. You feel good when you get to help other people." And he said, "You're denying me the ability to help you, which is stealing that blessing from me."
Mhm.
And he
Yes.
said, "Don't rob me of my blessing. Let me help you." And man, it stuck with me. I was like, "Wow, that is powerful." But that is a mindset shift that caregivers need to have. Other people will feel good by being able to help you, but
Yes.
they generally don't know how.
No,
So
people,
pull
if you
out
don't,
that
unless you've
index
been in
card.
it, unless you've been in it, you
Right.
don't know. Unless you've been a caregiver or are a caregiver, you don't know. So
Right.
help teach people. This is what we're all about here. This is why, and I don't want to have this conversation end after episode 3. It's a conversation that needs to keep being had so that caregivers feel better about speaking out loud about what they need and what they're going through without
Yes.
feeling like they're being judged or going to be judged. And
Right.
people that don't know because they don't know. So help them understand. Because
Right. Because you're
people say things that they think are helpful, which if you're the caregiver may not necessarily be helpful, but
mhm,
if they don't know,
right.
so
And they
how
don't know today, but one day they probably will. And
yeah,
so you can help them to
prepare.
understand now,
Yeah.
and you can model that good behavior now of saying, "Hey, I could use some support." And again, you're not asking them to do something they don't want to do. Show them that index
Mhm.
card with whatever it is on it, whatever it has that would help you. Maybe it's doing laundry if you hate doing laundry. If somebody would come over and do the laundry, or someone would sit with dad and watch a movie, whatever it is,
Mhm.
write it down and let them know. I have a lot of resources on my website at thepurplevine.com. There are a lot of articles that give you tips and ideas, strategies, suggestions, all the things, and I also have a weekly newsletter that goes out. It only goes out once a week because caregivers do not have time to read an email every day. And I know that. So it only goes out once a week. And you can get a lot of information there and free tools and everything as well. I'm developing more online programs as we speak. And I just recently joined the Wellness Universe. And that is a big platform that has a lot of different training modules and things on it. And I've got a couple on it as well. So I'm trying to reach people where they are. The Caregiver's Advocate
I was just
is
going
an
to ask, is
international,
there a book you could mention?
yes, the Caregiver's Advocate, international bestseller. I gathered 20 experts from 4 countries to each write on one thing, their passion thing that they wanted to write to help caregivers. And so the first part of it, they tell a little story that emphasizes the thing that they're going to be talking about. And then the last half or two-thirds is strategies for caregivers to use. It's real life tools that they use, things that they've done that they've seen work. And I've got a memory care expert in Israel, Rena Yudkowsky, that wrote a chapter. I've got a doctor in the UK, Dr. Carol Sargent, who wrote a chapter. I've got folks in Canada, and because dementia knows no borders. It is a worldwide problem, and it's been fantastic. We've got all five-star reviews. It's incredible. We've had doctors write in to say they're putting it in their waiting room for patients to read while they're waiting. It's just phenomenal. We've had other doctors write in and say that they learned things from reading the book. They had no idea because they have all this book training, but they typically don't have any hands-on experience.
Yeah,
And a lot of times there's a disconnect between the book learning and the reality. And that's what I found to be true in my case, which is why my husband and I created things to make life safer and easier. And that's how I got into this in the very first place because the little hospice nurse said, "Where did you read about this?" And I said, "I didn't read about it anywhere. The stuff on the market did not work for us. So we had to create something that did." And so that's what I do. And that's what I specialize in. That's why I really I love it when folks call me or email me at deb@thepurplevine.com, and I'll send you my calendar and you can have a first consultation absolutely free just to see if it's something you like, if it's something that's going to help you. But I guarantee you, you're going to leave feeling better than when you came in. And there's nothing to lose. You have nothing to
I
lose
can
except your stress.
I can vouch for that because the conversations that you and I have had, it's helped me in
Thank
my
you.
own relationship here with mom. So I'm
Thank you.
very grateful for you and for those conversations. Can you tell us a little tease or tidbit? And I hope by the next time we meet, that the sinus going on and all of this is better um,
For both of us.
for both of us.
Yep.
Um, can you give us
Oh,
a
I got to
little
tell you one thing
tease?
really
Okay,
fast.
okay, go ahead.
Cobbler.
What?
Blueberry cobbler
Oh,
is what I was
yes.
trying to say.
Yes.
And this is
Yes.
how you folks should know that you're okay, because when you don't have dementia, it drives you crazy until you come up with that word. And so the recall's a little slower, the computer's a little slower, but it's still there. It's
It's
still
still
working.
there. It's just going right through
Yes.
the files.
I'm
Can you
sorry.
give
I
us a little? No,
apologize.
don't
Yeah.
apologize. You did nothing wrong. And that's another thing. Oh God, women, stop apologizing. But anyways,
Okay.
give us a little tip on what we're going to be covering in episode 3.
Episode 3, we're going to be talking about later stages of the dementia. People will always tell you, it is sad, it is depressing, it's difficult, but there's still joy to be found. And I'm going to teach you ways that you can still connect with your loved one and that there are cherished moments. And I'll share with you real stories that represent what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is not theory and it's not, well, it might. No, what I tell you are things that I have done that worked for me. So that's what I will be sharing on that, and then also dealing with some of the grief that comes along in
Yeah,
those final stages and how do you handle it and how do you deal with it.
wonderful. Well, Debbie, thank you so much. There's been so much information that I'm sure is going to be helpful to so many. And I'm looking forward to episode 3. Please, please, please share this episode and episode 1 and episode 3 when it comes out with actually
Yes.
share it with everyone, because whether you
Everybody.
are there now or not, you might be someday. And we
Mhm.
really want to be able to, as I said, we both have said, keep this conversation going because it is a topic that needs to be brought more into the forefront. So thank you all so much. Thepurplevine.com.
Yes.
And I will have all of Deb's contact information, her website in the show notes. Please reach out to her and have a conversation and know that you are not alone in your journey. You are
Yes.
not alone. We want to send you as much love and grace and support and wish you so much peace and many, many blessings. Thank you for being a part of the Your Life, Your Way community. And if you have any questions for me, my contact information will also be in the show notes. Wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.